one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, well, let's dive in. Let's see. Okay, so just a quick overview of our agenda today. I'm going to do a very brief framing of the collaborative and kind of our work in helping facilitate these co-created statewide strategies. I'm going to turn it over to my friend Errol, who's going to lead an overview of the admissions redesign project and timeline. Like I said, a super quick impact exchange demo, because this is going to be our central hub for communicating and sharing resources. We'll then have a short break, and we'll then have the real substance of the meeting, which is discussing these discovery projects, which are going to help set this current state picture and wrap our arms around what it is that we're really wanting to do together. And then we'll wrap up. Okay, so a quick framing. As you all know, we are driven by our 20 by 30 goal that 60% of our population in Kentucky holds a post-secondary credential of value. Obviously, that is for economic mobility and overall prosperity for people in Kentucky. One of the most important pieces of that puzzle in reaching that goal is enrollment pathways. And so really excited that we received support from the Lumina Foundation to bring our stakeholders together and really think about what we want to do and what we can do to improve post-secondary and college going from high school direct to our universities. So the collaborative is an initiative of CPE. As I mentioned, many of you have worked with us in a lot of different scenarios, but we really were developed to bring people together, looking at our common priorities and our common challenges and figuring out how can we accelerate our progress on student success through the power of our shared knowledge and collaboration. We truly believe that we can accomplish more together than any of us can on our own. And so I think that that is what kind of uniquely allows us to engage in these conversations, even though like there may be some challenges that we encounter along the way. So we're here together over the next 12 months, really focusing on understanding the barriers our students may face and co-creating the solutions that'll help us streamline our admissions process, specifically for university-bound high school students. You may be familiar with our student success framework in Kentucky. This is kind of our chronological timeline of the student life cycle or the student journey, beginning with connecting the path from high school to college, from our KCTCS partners to our universities, as well as re-entry pathways for our adult learners. Charting the path is about starting strong. It's with that first, academic milestones in their first year, as well as kind of creating a career path and purpose along the way. Continuing the path is focused on the supports that we provide students to ensure that academic or non-academic barriers do not knock them off course. And then finally, we want all of our graduates to complete their degrees and credentials and transition to meaningful work, preferably here in Kentucky. And we know that they'll need these essential skills that are in demand across all industries, critical thinking and problem solving, and just the real purpose of our educations. We, in a lot of the collaborations that I've had a chance to work on, it has been so helpful to have an agreed upon process of working together, which is really just making sure that all of our stakeholders are on the same page as we move through. So this is a collaborative action process borrowed from our partners in Columbus, Indiana Civic Lab. You start with in the red dot there, identifying your key community issue. For us, that's the admissions redesign project. We convene the right people, we build the trusting relationships, we gather and understand the data, which helps us create the current state picture of understanding, which allows us to vision our future state and what we hope to accomplish. We then can identify those solutions that are going to help us get there, implement them, and continuously learn and improve. So this is kind of our overall process with the collaborative. And we'll be able to dive deeper into different little bubbles around this as we go. And I'll hopefully always kind of share where we are in the process as we move along. And finally, the last piece of our framing is around equity. And it's, how do we center equity in the work that we do? And I would say that from the collaborative's perspective, all of the issues that we work on are equity issues. We are focused on transfer success. We are focused on gateway course success. We are focused on student basic needs. We are focused on supporting adult learners and their reentry into post-secondary education. And now we're focused on admissions redesign. And specifically, how do we ensure that our admissions processes are open and accessible for students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, students from Southeastern Kentucky, adult learners. And so those are kind of the ways that we think about our work. And in order to check ourselves, like how are we really ensuring that the work that we're creating is equity centered? We created 4 principles, and we wanted it to be something that we could really make sure that we were accountable for. One of those is prioritizing and centering student voice in all that we do. The next one is ensuring that our project teams, both this guiding team as well as our larger admissions redesign network, are representative of the student populations that we want to serve and that we hope to reach. Finally, third, when we do data, we always disaggregate. We disaggregate by race, by region, by resources, and by age or gender. And then finally, when we come to the solutions that we're co-creating, we want to make sure we're checking those for being culturally competent, culturally aware, culturally responsive, and all of those pieces just to make sure that they will resonate with the students that we hope to serve in the long run. So these are the key pieces of our work, and really excited that we have such great national partners coming alongside us here in Kentucky to add their expertise, their national lens, and really help us think big about all that we can accomplish. So I am going to now turn it over to my partner, Errol, and I'm going to stop sharing screen and let him share his own.
All righty, thank you, Lily. Okay, so let me make sure, can we all see? Everybody can see, okay?
Yes, we can see.
All right, very good. All right, so let me just come here. I apologize, let me get this going. Sorry, 1 second, I'm having some technical. All right. All right, so good morning, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Errol Wint, and I'm thrilled to be able to be with you all today and in this project, having worked in enrollment management for over a decade and in higher education for 15 years. This is a really exciting time and a really important time to be engaging in a conversation like this in terms of our admissions redesign, especially as we enter into 2024. And go forward with what we see ahead, as Lily mentioned, and as many of us know, in terms of the trajectory of higher education and the importance of the enrollment strategist and the enrollment planner in this time period that we're in. This last year, when it comes to my placement and my interest in this particular work, I spent the year in a sort of sabbatical of sorts, taking the time to step away from the on-campus position in terms of working in the admissions world to study what enrollment looks like across a variety of institutions. What that looked like was taking time to really do deep dives in terms of looking at the literature, looking at what some of the leading voices in higher education are saying about the forecast of higher education. Engaging in podcasts and working to have meaningful discussions with EAB Royal and Niche and the higher ed marketer and many different vantage points. And coming into this project, when I worked with and connected with Lily, the idea was, what is going to give Kentucky an advantage to where we can think and see between the lines of what we need to do to position ourselves for success. I know a lot of people in this space are individuals who come from a very rich background when it comes to enrollment management. And we're going to need that context and that history as we move forward and engage a process that's meant to optimize creativity. And that is going to be that design thinking modality. So as mentioned, we know what the issues are. We know about the demographic shift. We know about the statewide priorities, but I want to emphasize this last point in terms of creativity and innovation has never been in higher demand. One of the things I remember when I went to NACAG last year and I was walking around the expo hall and I was just interviewing all of the vendors and then also spending time with my peer director colleagues. So many individuals that are at universities felt like the services that they were receiving were cookie cutter when it came to the reception by students. A framework in terms of an email, a framework in terms of a presentation or an experience that all looked the same across the board. And everybody wanted differentiation. Everybody wanted to reimagine its value proposition. And the question then became, how can we best go about doing so in a way that honors quantitative data, right? So recognizing the importance of big data to be able to see where the patterns are, but also qualitative data as well. So how do we see in between the lines and bring context into play so that we're able to think about things and innovate in a very unique and important way? The thing about creativity that I want to come and present to you all today and submit to you is that I'm coming into this process not to solve any problems, necessarily not to come in as the solution holder, but rather to create space for a community of very important, very busy individuals so that you all can bring your expertise, your creativity to the fold and participate in co-creating a solution that'll make sense not only for your individual institutions, but also for the state of Kentucky and the higher education system. So creativity has certainly never been in higher demand as we're seeing the emergence of things like artificial intelligence, as we're seeing, the transition of members of our profession, whether it's through retirement or leaving the industry, as we're seeing the shift in mindset of students, understanding it at pace, understanding it at depth is where we want to be able to do this. And I'm going to be leaning on each and every one of you all as we walk through this process to add a level of creative expertise to this. In terms of where we've come, Lily did a good job of talking about and exposing where we've come. These are just some of the notes from the convening that you all shared in terms of some of the priority areas that you brainstormed before. And I'm just putting it back in front of you all because I thought that these were really good ideas. We'll continue to build upon these, but we're also going to open the door to add more to these particular discussions. But I wanted you to get a sense and to be able to see this, to recognize that we're continuing a process that has already started prior to me coming. So we're going to build throughout the rest of the year. In terms of where we're going, the two areas, and I will say to you all, this intentionally has a lot of content. I'm not reading it word for word because I want you to have this and review it after the meeting, and then we can have conversations thereafter. But I spoke about the importance of innovation and collective design thinking, this collective design thinking process. We're going to work through this mixed method process together and really find opportunities for you all to take time out of your busy schedules and create together. And then the directional influence of your enrollment pipeline. So the alignment of CPE and the higher education institutions. Look, we know that we are a profession where there's competition. Let's speak about the elephant in the room, right? We know that we're all sourcing from the same students, but there is a model and there are states as well as organizations that are out there where the ability to share, the ability to collaborate in recognition of finding new ways to recruit students in ways that benefit everyone will come to fruition and help each and everybody in each and every in unique ways. So we're going to work towards aligning those efforts in terms of the pipeline. So we're going to review the project scope. We'll talk about the project timeline, then I'll pass it back to Lily to go through the discovery projects. So the admissions redesign project, you all should have seen the prospectus, but it is aiming to optimize the admissions process across Kentucky higher education system. We will be, and what I'm going to be focusing on is lining up a series of meaningful and substantive spaces where you all, as well as the admissions redesign network, are going to be able to contribute their feedback, their ideas, and we're going to take that data and translate it into emergent themes and move it in a direction to where we can create what we call prototypes. These are going to be proof of concept visualizations that we're going to be able to develop and move forward and continue to build upon, change, adjust as we go along. The goals are to develop a statewide strategy, to map out a 3-year implementation plan, as well as to contribute to the field through the exposure to artificial intelligence. There is going to be a piece where we are going in depth, exposing this group to new elements of the ongoing artificial intelligence dialogue and conversations. And then we will provide each of you as partners with findings from these discovery projects. On the scope, we are going to facilitate design exercises. We'll walk through what that looks like in terms of timeline moving ahead. And we do ask that you commit to these virtual meetings, the webinars that will be forthcoming, as well as the exploratory spaces. Your participation is huge. There's also a recognition that in our world, in terms of enrollment management, it is a heavy quantitative data focused world. We use machine learning, we use predictive modeling, we use all kinds of things to understand how students are going to behave. Adding this element of design thinking in this time in the pursuit of innovation and creativity adds a new piece to the conversation, particularly in a time where our entire society is changing before our eyes. The students that we're recruiting, their mindset is changing. Mental health after the pandemic is at a place that we've never experienced in our careers before. And so bringing this piece in and working with this group is going to allow you all to think about things in a unique and different way. The project is going to run between now and January the 31st. And what we are going to prepare for is to have a prototype that we can work with in terms of the spring 2025 yield season. So something very tangible for this group to be thinking about, as well as the 2026 recruitment year, in addition to that 3-year implementation plan. And then the benefits, this is going to be for all higher education institutions. The risks and challenges, we understand that this group's work capacity is really stretched. So we want to, ensure that we're being mindful and respectful of your time. We also recognize that this group has a lot of pressure under it in terms of feeding the revenue stream for your respective institutions. And so ensuring that we're involving and taking as much of your contributions as possible and respecting your time is key. There's varying culture around data. I think when we talk about data-informed culture, there are different levels of comfort in terms of engaging data, as well as modality of approach. This is introducing a mixed methods approach as we move forward with the group, but we are leaning heavily in terms of this design planning process on the qualitative side. I mentioned professional competitiveness, but I am asking that we trust in one another and that we trust the process. So what is design thinking? So design thinking is a human-centered approach to problem solving. I think this really fits with everything we talk about in this profession when we think about being student-centered. But not only is it about being student-centered, a human approach spans across just human beings. When we think about the observations of not only our students when it comes to the admissions process as adding value, and it's something that we do naturally, there's also value in terms of staff, faculty, all adding contributions in terms of what they see, whether it's a front stage engagement with the admissions journeys that we're going to be looking at and studying, or the backstage. And what I mean by front stage, that could be engaging with a student in a recruitment conversation or a large event that you may host. Backstage may be working on your application platform, looking at how a slate is being optimized or whatever your CRM is within your respective enrollment management process. But it's taking all of those observations and extracting insights and being able to code that into a series of emergent themes, and then working to prioritize and decide what's really going to sustain us moving forward in this future world that none of us have experienced. And whether or not you are a partner that is concerned that you may be seeing an enrollment decrease, or a partner that sees the future as a potential for booming increase. As we know in this profession, enrollment management is a big, hairy, audacious problem to be solved. And so there is a domino effect whether you experience a decrease in enrollment or an increase that requires there to be a level of creativity. And the design thinking framework brings that to the piece. So empathy in terms of putting observations of students at the center of our work, creativity, encouraging us to think outside the box and come up with innovative solutions. Experimentation, so iterative prototyping that gives us permission to produce preliminary versions or models of that we can be able to use and validate, revalidate as we move forward. It's a lot easier to understand this by experiencing it. And so again, we appreciate that you all are engaging us and entrusting in this process. And the objectives of this design project is to personalize the experience, is to reimagine the value proposition and engaging that admissions journey, is to streamline as much as possible, position you all as leaders in a high volume Zoom culture, in a high volume events culture, in a high volume meetings culture, to have the space to think and rolling from one meeting to another and answering emails and talking to students doesn't afford, that lifestyle does not afford for that ability. So I'm going to be here to champion the most optimized and effective use of that space. And then we are going to introduce this pathway as a function of speed and agility. I always talk about how Nike, whenever I speak with any of my groups that I work with, just a couple of years ago, abandoned the long-term plan, which I'm not suggesting for any of you all, but I'm giving this as an example, to come up with the 3-month plan to replace structure and long-term planning for speed and agility. And I would suggest that this is the group within higher education that's primed to really benefit from thinking about how to come up with new solutions, especially as we think about what you all are seeing in terms of the FAFSA right now. And how the entire timeline is being pushed back, and what does that mean for all of your strategies? Well, similar to Nike, how can we approach this from the mindset of designers and really bring out the creativity and the innovation from each one of us? So in terms of each phase of the design thinking journey, then after this, I will actually show you the dates and to look forward to over the next year. Our first phase is going to be context building. So we're going to be gathering information and insights, and that's going to occur through conducting research, having interviews, and then understanding observations. So between now and April, what you're going to see is a collection of information not only from students but also from staff. And we're asking you all to work with us, so that we can be able to get some preliminary information to get those individuals' perspectives as we build out, a visualization and an asset in the form of an admissions journey. Within this context building piece, we're also going to really focus on artificial intelligence and present to you all a form of education to build on what you already know. To integrate that in the consideration point. Why artificial intelligence has an emphasis? It is the most rapidly growing, society-altering component or element that we have seen in a long time, and being able to bring this community into to bring that aspect into the imagination and into this process can only benefit as we think about what the next 6 years is going to look like and imagine that together. Phase 2, we're going to analyze and synthesize. So from this will be in around May, June. We're going to go ahead and analyze all the data that we have collected, the qualitative data, as well as any quantitative data that you all assist us in corralling and collecting. And then we're going to do a preliminary identification of patterns, trends, and opportunities for innovation. Phase 3 will be the diverge and converge. So diverge, we're going to go through an ideation process. So we're going to generate a wide range of ideas and solutions, and then from there prioritize and hone in on some specifics in the form of a problem statement, and really connect with the most promising ideas. And then finally, in the fall, we'll prototype and then provide recommendations, and that'll look like resources for you all to be thinking about, as I mentioned in terms of our deliverables before, What does your spring yield season of 2025 look like, and how can you differentiate your admissions journey and your engagement experience from some of your competitors? And then also, how can we work collectively to enhance it? So what are some of the areas that we can work together to really bring to life, you know, vendor relationships and partnerships, different resources, or other collaborative steps, so that we can move forward as a state in reimagining our admissions process. So the timeline, I was integrating it as I was talking, but this shows a visualization. We're going to analyze first, then we'll move into the strategizing step in terms of engaging in design thinking workshops, and then engaging in that ideation. We'll operationalize thereafter, and really getting into the prioritization of which strategies, which strategies are going to hold true, and all of this will, which strategies will hold true, and then we'll finalize thereafter in terms of the implementation plan, as well as a list of recommendations. I want to wrap up with this timeline by stressing, and I'm going to look directly in the camera to say that everybody here is going to participate or play a role as a co-creator with your rich and very important context. Nobody understands the admissions journey at your respective university better than you. And the people that are at your university don't understand it better than those individuals respectively. And so I'm here to facilitate self-discovery. I'm here to facilitate self-empowerment, and also to generate the best questions possible so that you all, with every moment that we engage throughout this process, feel like you're thinking about your admissions journey in a new way. So we've talked about that. So our next steps from thereafter, and I love this picture because it showcases an alignment, which is what we want to achieve with this group. We want to honor the individuality, but we also want to recognize that there's an opportunity here to think about how we can come together as a group. So a commitment of support. This is a journey that I must submit that us working in an era where it's about predicting results and consistency and outcomes, that is very, very important. What we're doing here is introducing a journey and a process that is going to be iterative, that is going to require us to truly think outside the box. So it's going to be exciting at times, but it's also going to be uncomfortable. And so I say the commitment on your all's part as we walk through this is to trust the process, is to ask good questions, and it is to challenge yourself and your teams to answer those questions in the direction of not finding a fail-proof solution that will go into perpetuity, but something that's going to work right now. And that we give ourselves permission to mold and transform and engage as we move ahead. The next action steps, there will be, the definition of next action steps will come via email next week. That'll come from me. That is going to include information in terms of how we are going to engage the artificial intelligence context building. It will also be a call to action for your Admissions Redesign Network nominees to participate in a series of focus groups conversations. Those will be facilitated by me. We will have a series of standardized questions across the board. And those individuals we ask are going to be staff members on your team that come from the front stage of your operation as well as the backstage of your operation. So those instructions will come later, and we'll talk some more about what that's going to look like. But I want to thank you in advance for willfully thinking about, even as I'm saying this now, some of your most creative and outside the box members of your team. And you know who they are. They're the ones that sometimes will come into the space and challenge you to see things differently. They maybe have designed or created things in the past that have really made an impact, and you didn't see it then, but you appreciate it in hindsight 2020. or it might be someone that you think has that potential, but be thinking about who those individuals are now. And then we're going to position everybody on the virtual collaboration platform. A comment about collaboration. So for the 4 years I was at Indiana University, I was a part of a national organization that brought together the largest public universities across the United States called ACAPU. And we would meet regularly virtually, and then we would come together. We would come together in person. And this group was so powerful and unique because although these were all competitors, we were able to find the ways to have a mutually beneficial relationship in sharing in ideas, sharing in data, and sharing in time and space to think about the admissions world on a national level. What we want to strive to do here in terms of building a culture across this grant and this project is something similar within the state of Kentucky, right? And that's going to take time and that's going to take intentionality. But as we move through this process, I want to assure you that I'm going to be available and accessible for any of the leaders that want to, talk about what your experience is on your campus or where you've come from, or any feedback you have in regards to this process. As we've got a plan, and I want to thank Lily because we complement each other very well. She takes the ideas and puts them into really, really well-defined containers. And then I'm here to bring that design thinking culture to the table and shepherd us through that with the background and context of enrollment management. So I'll wrap up from there and I'll pass it back to Lily and just want to say thank you to everybody for having me along on the journey. As a Kentuckian, this is a project that I am personally very passionate about and excited to be able to think about how we can serve students in a new way as the world changes before our eyes. So happy and excited to be there with you all on this walk. Thank you all.
Thank you, Errol. Okay, awesome. Does anybody have any questions or kind of initial thoughts? I think that was great context setting, and hopefully folks have been aware of this project over the last several months, because we've been having, momentum building conversations since September, really, when we first got together to think about some admissions work. So, well, feel free. Oh, yeah, Jenny.
And, Errol, you talked about capacity and you talked about the timeline. And I think as Christine and Scott and I, some of us talked about our network teams. I believe most of us are going to have someone from the financial aid counseling side or the financial aid, and Rebecca, Becky's on here, and affordability is such a big part of all of this. I think we would be remiss if we did not recognize the fact that our colleagues in financial aid have a tremendous lift this year in trying to do their work in a very collapsed time frame that is going to start in March and go through when classes start. But I just want us to be cognizant of that as we're scheduling things, that we're aware of the special demands, and those demands are trickling into our admissions offices, right? But we are dealing with a unique, hopefully once in a lifetime type of collapsed timeline for our students.
Right.
And I think we're all in a position where that has to be a lot of our focus this particular year, is how do we get this group of students that are coming to us this year through our processes and through our pipelines and making decisions in a very, very shortened timeline.
Jenny, I actually echo everything that you say. I wear both of those hats. So the financial aid aspect, or the hat, has been worn more frequently than less, with all of the changes, the delays, the deliverables that have not been met by the Department of Ed. And you speak very well in terms of the condensed time frame, though the time frame and calendar has shifted, and it is thought to really have an impact on our students and parents. First-time freshmen, as they're making decisions on their colleges and college decision, that whole process is so condensed. And then I also think about our continuing students and our ability to retain them, and they understand what the impact is as it relates to going through the application process. There are students that are still struggling with even that aspect of it. We are in anticipation of receiving those ICERs mid-March in batches. So we'll have to see what that even looks like, and then to be able to turn around financial aid award packages shortly after that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unknowns this year. In all of my 30+ years in higher ed, this is probably kind of the worst change that I've experienced from the Department of Ed. However, the intent is to was good intent. It was to make more students eligible. It was to build awareness about even applying, all of those things. But you only see, in a sense, the negative aspects that we're hearing from our students and our parents, and obviously the media as well.
I'll chime in. It's ironic you bring this up. Lily, Lena, and I were engaged in a conversation literally a week leading up to this, just about the FAFSA issue and the recognition of the demand of time and energy and attention of not only the financial aid side, but Jenny, you mentioned it, Leah, you as well, the trickle down effect of your admissions team members, resources being pulled in order to compensate for that, and also the uncertainty of a standard timeline, that May 1 national college acceptance deadline. What does that mean moving ahead? And my message back to you is the same one that I shared when I spoke with Lily is, as a design planner, everything has the ability to be adjusted when we talk about this plan, right? And so another part of my role, besides the design thinking, the design planning work, that combines the enrollment management and the design thinking world into one, is to bring that context of my study of the enrollment management landscape, having conversations with you all and ensuring that I'm bringing that to the project, that level of sensitivity, and that also that nimbleness, so that we can be able to say, well, having a meeting, right now in late April, when the Department of Education has made this decision, might not be the best way to go, or collecting data in this particular way that requires time may be something we need to reconsider. And so we'll listen to you all, and thank you to Leah and Jenny for bringing to light that need to be more sensitive for this unprecedented experience.
I think that another piece of this, and thank you, Errol, and this is a great part of the conversation. We have tried to provide as much just clarity around this process, this commitment. And so I'm very intentional about, it's 10 hours, right? Or was it 15 hours for the admissions redesign network meetings over the course of a year? 10 additional hours for you wonderful friends sitting on the guiding team and helping steer this work. So I know that no amount of time is honestly, like, nobody has any time, but we will do 100% of our best to keep it to that commitment that you have very graciously made. And the other side of everything that we try to do is for a value add back to you. And so that is also our goal and our promise as we come together and we have these very intentional and fruitful conversations, that one, we respect your time and the commitment that you have made, and two, that everything that we do, our goal is for it to add value to your work in the long run. And we will continue to be responsive and adaptable and go with this flow that is happening that we never could have really anticipated, but here we are. So I appreciate all of those points. Okay, I'm going to move into this last little bit that I wanted to share with you all, and then we will take a quick break. And I also wanted to say hello to Dan. Dan joined us, so we have all of our institutions with us today. Thank you, Dan. Did you want to introduce yourself at all? I know you know everybody probably, but.
Sure. Sorry for being late. I was in a meeting that carried over, as everyone is used to. Dan Hendrickson, Associate Vice President, Student Success Engagement and Opportunity at EKU. All things enrollment management report to me, in addition to financial aid, corporate partnerships, and a few other areas.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, so getting back to Impact Exchange world. Okay, so it is really important that I think we have a platform for communicating and sharing resources and just kind of where, email is insane if your email box looks anything like mine. So I don't want things to get lost and hard to find and take up any more time. So we do have a platform that is called the Impact Exchange, and it is easy to get to at tinyurl.com/KY Impact Exchange. Now, when you do go to that platform, you will want to sign in, and there's a quick sign in button, and that will either your Google or your LinkedIn. If your work email is connected to your LinkedIn, then that would be my recommended one, but it isn't always for people. So just know that like when you do get in there, if there are posts in our admissions redesign channel, they're going to go to the email address that's affiliated with how you log in. Okay, so once you get in there and you do sign in, then you'll be able to see all of the channels that are available. And when you look at the channels, I'm just going to go right into it. So this is the Impact Exchange. Okay, and so I am logged in over here. Here is a page that says channels. There are a lot of them, but if you only see like the commons, that's because I'm a member of these channels. That's why they appear for me. So if you only see the commons, then that means that you want to actually look and explore the channels that are available to join. You want to become a member of our admissions redesign channel. And then inside that channel is where we will post all of our meetings. We will post all of the deliverables for this project. We will post like the reports from the data discovery or the reports from the journey mapping, the ultimate strategy document that we co-create, the implementation plan. So things will be posted inside here. If you did go into this meeting, you would be able to see, well, here's a link to the agenda. And then after our meeting concludes, we'll also go in and put the meeting recording link as well as the PowerPoint decks that have been shared with you. So this is a great platform for documenting kind of a group's progress and work together. I will say you can also ask questions. You can throw something out there to the group and say, hey, FAFSA, like, how are you dealing with this particular thing that just got thrown out there? Or whatever the case may be. So this is also a communication platform for us as a team. Now, I will say that this is not a hidden channel, so anybody could be a part of it. We are marketing it specifically to our group. And so this is it's intended just to be kind of a more closed network, but just be aware of that, that this is public facing and out there. Okay. If you have any questions about the Impact Exchange, we'll send them in the follow-up email after this meeting with a link directly to this channel, and it'll hopefully walk you back through, okay, here's the link, sign in, look at the all channels, join the admissions redesign channel, and then boom, access all of our materials throughout the year.
Lily, can I stop you there just for a second? And I may turn off my video because I seem to be lagging. This is public facing, so anyone can sign in and access any of these channels. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So
I worry that that may tamp down some of the back and forth ideation and collaboration. I think that there's data and other things in question. So I'm just sharing that for the group. I completely understand. I think it's great to have it, especially if there are outputs and data that we're finding that is helpful. But I do think to the chatting back and forth and critical concerns, other things like that, I do have concerns with public facing space.
okay. I can make it a closed channel. The only thing is we need everybody to join it first, and then I can make it closed. Or I believe maybe I can even invite a specific roster of people. If that's the preferred method of this group, then that's fine with me. Because anything that is a document, that is like a public facing, here's our strategy. I can post that just in our commons that's accessible to everybody. But we could keep this as more of a closed network group if that is the preference.
Yeah, and I don't want to make the decision for the group. My mind just goes to spaces and places and collaboration, and that I don't want anybody not to feel comfortable to throw something out there that they might not if it was public.
Okay. No, that's great. That's great feedback, Christine. Okay, so if you can, and this will be in the follow-up email, but join this channel maybe by early next week, Tuesday, and then we will do more of a close down, and then I'll alert you once the channel is just us. So, okay. Okay, well, it's 11:55. This is perfect timing. Let's take a quick 7-minute break, and we will return at, what is that, 12:02. Okay, thanks, everybody. All right, everybody. Let me share screen. Now, I hope that you do have your hands free a little bit so that we can do some polling and brainstorming together in a Mentimeter platform. So I don't know if you've used that in the past, but I very much love Mentimeter. Okay, so the first phase, as Errol outlined for us, is our discovery phase. This is really where we are building our current state picture and trying to gather as much information as we can about the experience of our students, as well as our admissions professionals and our high school guidance counselors and other key stakeholders in helping our high school students transition. We, as a part of the Lumina grant application, we outlined 4 discovery projects that we really wanted to undertake to help set the stage. These will be, I think, very complementary to one another, and really help us paint a pretty comprehensive, robust picture. The first one is a data request to CPE/KY stats. In our meeting in September, several data questions kind of emerged, and I think that we just have an opportunity to really dig deep and figure out where are our blind spots, or what are things that we want to know more about. And so we'll spend kind of the most, I think I have about 50 minutes or so. So we'll spend a good bit of time thinking about those data questions and kind of building out what that could look like. The second area, as Errol mentioned, is the AI webinar series. And so he is planning to put together a strong 3 to 4 webinars in the month of March, hopefully, or really, just up until our next April checkpoint, on the hot topics that you're really interested in, but also within a framework that is helpful for understanding how to best maximize AI in our processes. I'm going to turn it back over to Errol if he'd like to add any more context around the admissions staff kind of focus group element of this, to understand from the process side what our high school guidance counselors and our admissions professionals are seeing as potential challenges, or just parts of this process that we want to improve. And then finally, I'm going to turn it over to Lena to share the student journey mapping element of this discovery project. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is I would love for you to go to menti.com. If you can do this on your computer, great. Your phone is just as accessible. And when you go to menti.com, it'll prompt you for the code. And that code is 71610404. Okay, so you'll put that code in and you should see this slide. And it's what I'm hoping that we can do. This is a word cloud slide. So I'm really looking for big ideas. Like, what are some of the big concepts in our data of college going that you are curious about, that you'd like to know more about? And as people put in their ideas, 1 word, 2 words, not a sentence or anything, then it'll appear. And if you want to like co-sign something, you can put in multiple responses, and then that word gets bigger and bigger as more people are interested in it. Okay, we want to explore equity gaps. Great. Love it. Delayed enrollment. Okay, so is that, they're not going right after high school, they're like, but what then? They do enroll within a year or 2 years after high school. Graduation rates, is that high school graduation rates? Let's see, I feel like I need my chat up so that I can. Summer melt. Student information. Transition. Gap advantages. College prepared. Okay, yeah. Fewer applicants. So applications are down. What were,
Lily, can we only do 3 or can we go back in and do more?
is it stopping you at 3?
Well, I'm on my phone. I think it's stopping me at 3.
Yeah, it stopped me and kicked me into a please wait, the presenter hasn't changed slides and I can't put anything else in.
Okay. Let's see, I
Yeah, Christina and I are never going to stop at 3, right, Christine?
can.
Yes.
Let's see, I think I can. Okay, I'll give you each 6. Restore removed inputs. Is it updated now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Adult learners. Okay, this is only about high school students, so we're going to focus on the high school to university transition. Summer Melt got a double click. Gen Z and Gen Alpha trend. Okay. Value proposition. Projected population size. So is that the enrollment cliff? You want to, okay, got it. Okay, we have some good ideas out here. I feel like I'm not. Michelle, what is this? Oops, okay. Thank you, Michelle. Privacy issue, okay. All right, so we have a pretty good group of like kind of big data pieces, but I'd like to better understand what some of these mean so that we can do a next level of kind of prioritizing. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha trend, would anybody like to share a little bit more context about that data piece, that data question? So we really just, we're looking at the college going trends of students in like, what time window is that? You can put it in the chat or. Okay, I'll move on, but feel free to circle back. So with dual credit impacts, we're looking at the college going behaviors of students that participate in dual credit or early college experiences, right?
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Can I expand a little bit on that one?
Yeah,
Because I had some other things that didn't, I don't know why they didn't come in, but in this space, I think that what's really, when we look at the college going rate, also kind of financial priorities, there's been legislation that I'm seeing coming through this current cycle that disincentivizes and actually decreases the amount of dual credit available, but increases the amount of work ready scholarships and CTE scholarships. The current funding for CTE is 6 times the amount of dual credit. There was a jump, and I kind of pulled all the financials down and was looking at that just to understand when I saw those bills come through, why that might be happening or what's going on there. And so there were just some really interesting takeaways that I think we need to look at. The KTG private school scholarship, for every one student that receives a KTG scholarship, that could fund 6+ dual credit students in high school. The Work Ready, I think right now is double the current spend, but for fewer students each year. So what I would ask is, there's not as much publicly reported information on dual credit, but from a retention perspective, we know that the students at the greatest retention risk from our data at UK are those that have 0 credits coming in, whether it's dual credit, AP, IB, what have you. And so if this really is a focus of the state, current legislation, funding initiatives, and other things are not really quite lining up. And I do also I'm concerned with the legislation about the dual credit, that it is on a first come, first served basis, and relative to equity gaps and other things, and kind of who the gatekeepers are and all of that, that I think that will just continue to have students access dual credit that are already college going, and really not focus on schools and school districts in particular where we could actually shift the college going rate. I mean, ultimately, whether there are demographic declines or not, in our state, with our college going rate being lower, we can combat that by increasing the college going rate. But the current things that I'm seeing are not necessarily in line with this project in particular.
Thank you, Christine. And I will just say, so I'm going to bundle that under dual credit, but just know that we'll get to a point where we can really flesh out all of the equity pieces, the funding pieces, the incentivized. This will be a big data request, but we're going to capture it as dual credit. So
Lily, can I just address some of these things that she's mentioned really quick? I think what you're talking about there with the first come, first served language is what's currently in House Bill 399, I think is the one. It's the dual credit merger bill. So we can be clear on that. That's not in any way implying that there's not enough funding for dual credit in the budget. He is working with the legislators to make sure we have enough to keep it fully funded. And so far, it's always been fully funded for every student who has wanted to take dual credit in the state. And that's both on the gen ed side as well as the CTE side. The first come, first serve is just the priority award order for actually awarding those students because they hit us basically the length of the entire year. And so if you read the statutory language for the program really closely, what you're going to see is right now it says the priority has to go to seniors first, and then juniors and sophomores and freshmen. It's an academic class order. And that creates a huge problem if we ever get into a bind where we do not have enough money, because then we have to go at the end of the year when we do not have enough, we have to pull the money back from the sophomores and the freshmen to make everything balance. So first come, first serve is actually the way that it is working. It was just never codified in the statute that way. So that's what that piece of the bill is talking about. And if you have any other questions about that bill, feel free to call me, offline, and I'll be glad to talk about all that.
Becky, that's really helpful. I think that the way it's written, and that in combination with limiting it in terms of dual credit to 2 courses, and the way that it's structured, read in that way. And then the expansion of CTE, there was a concern just in the way the bill came through in those areas. So that's helpful.
The bill's actually helping us align everything to what we're currently doing. So it's not changing anything. It's really it's just making all those things permanent so those kids can have 2 gen eds each year as juniors and seniors, and that they can still keep those 2 CTE per year. And if you also notice at 50% language on the rate, the tuition rate, the ceiling would be set. That's going to show up. It's not in the bill yet, but there's a committee sub coming and it will show up in there.
thank you. I can tell there's a lot of energy around dual credit, so that is good. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So population size, I'm going to label that as enrollment cliff, and really just wanting to know even more, maybe deeper dives into Kentucky and where, if it's regional, if it's, there's some other aspect to the enrollment cliff that we want to know more contextualized. Gap, advantages. So I know we have equity gaps as another one. Is this a similar idea or is it different?
I think, I think I put that and I was thinking about the advantages to people taking a gap semester or gap year.
Ah,
Not
okay.
gap, not gap as in equity gaps.
Okay, and then we also have delayed enrollment, so maybe that would
They're very
bundle with those two.
Yeah.
Okay. And so maybe okay, great, delayed enrollment and exploration of that. Summer melt is pretty clear, like the impact of summer melt on matriculation and then first year success. Is that data CPE might have? I'm not sure. Or are we just looking at not talking about summer bridge, we're just looking at summer melt. So, okay,
Summer melt's gonna be different
okay,
per
yeah,
institution. Ours has been similar for the past like 7 years
okay.
and relatively low versus our comparators. So it could be different, meaning different things for different institutions.
Okay, well, we can flesh out the specifics of the data question, but it looks like there's students that may start in your process and then not end up matriculating. Does the fewer applicants go along with the enrollment cliff? Okay, great. Privacy issue.
And I would say it connects to the privacy issues also.
Okay, can you
Absolutely.
say more about that, Christine, or is that just something that would be embedded
Yeah,
in the enrollment cliff?
When and a number of people on this call knows this, when the ACT contract was re-upped a number of years ago in the state, it no longer allowed for us to buy that which is the state graduation exam. And because of that, like our prospects from those buys went from about 33,000 Kentucky students down to 19,000. So it hits and impacts the students that are the most vulnerable or under-resourced the most, because we don't have their contact information to be able to reach out to them to talk about the process. So
is there a data question though, that CPE or KY stats have data that can help illuminate this issue, or is that just a barrier?
It's a barrier. I don't think that KY stats would be able to, well, KY stats could, I mean, ACT can provide us with that data. They can provide you with a chart that would show the number of available for purchase in the state of Kentucky, like over the last, I would probably say to do it like over the last 7 to 8 years. Christine, that would kind of capture the issue, right?
yes.
And available to purchase at what points and times. So if you go back even further than that, and you go back to when the state eliminated and ACT eliminated the 10th grade exam, when we had, it's not only how many names we had access to, but it's also when we had access to those names. And so that gets back to just the funnel, and when we're able to start to connect with students and make them aware of educational opportunities, both early secondary opportunities and also post-secondary opportunities.
And that's connected to student information, I assume.
Yes.
That particular one. Okay.
Yeah, that's included. It's student information.
I'll write it down and we'll see it where it comes. And then I think I see transition here. I don't know if that's connected to summer melt. And then I see college prepared. So do we want to do a deep dive on college readiness and college going and first year success and things? Okay.
I think so. And for that too, you might reach out outside of just the general centralized data. Like I said, we've done a deep dive into what that looks like for us, and I've identified 0 credit hour being a major impact. There may be other campuses that are doing similar data assessment that can highlight some other things that are challenges relative to college preparedness. There is with the ACAPU group a consortium that's sprung out of that's looking specifically at math readiness in the test optional environment. So happy to provide some of that data from that national group.
Okay. All right. Now before we move forward, I am updating our ranking poll with these top data questions. And then Okay, I did that. Let's come over here and go to the next slide. Yay. Okay. So now in your Mentimeter, we want to rank these according to priority for you and kind of think that, you know, we have about 2 months. I can put in multiple data requests, but not 7. So put your most high, you know, the things that you're like, absolutely, this is essential to us moving this work forward, for us really understanding barriers for students and opportunities in our processes.
And where are we doing that? We're
It should be in your Mentimeter.
In
So
our-
in that same app, it should have advanced to the next screen or next question, and
Got it.
and just note, with every data request, we will disaggregate.
And Lily, so the value proposition was one of the larger on the Mentimeters.
Oh,
We not have any data within Kentucky. Have Kentucky students not, Kentucky families not been polled about how they value a college education? I know there's lots of national data on that topic.
yeah. I don't know if anybody else is, Amanda Ellis, maybe, I don't know if anybody else is aware
Yeah,
of.
yeah, I'll chime in. So one of the partnerships in connection to this project is Niche. There's a contact at Niche where they do very large scale studies to the nature of what you're talking about, Jenny. In order to capture the mindset at critical intervals throughout the enrollment journey, we'll be pulling that data and bringing that into this space. And you're able to actually disaggregate that data based off of state. You can also go to all the way down to city if you want. And they're very supportive in working with being able to pull that data. So I would recommend, if you wanted to get a jump on it, hop into that, and I'm happy to make the introduction to their lead data scientist as well.
Thank you.
Has everyone had a chance to vote? Okay. Okay, so it looks like it's a pretty good kind of stair step here. So college prepared and dual credit are numbers 1 and 2. And I was thinking that we would take a little bit of time and flesh out numbers 1 and 2. And then if we did throw a third in there, we would kind of circle back on that. But okay, so number 1, college prepared, and number 2, dual credit data request. So now this is more of an open-ended response. And I will double check that you can submit multiple things. But I'm curious about, so like, Christine, when you had 5 different data questions about dual credit, this one is about college prepared. So throw in specific questions that you have about college prepared and how that impacts enrollment, retention, completion, et cetera, whatever those questions may be. And that'll just help us capture the big pieces of the data request that we want to submit. And I do allow multiple responses per person, so you can feel free to share here. College prepared. Okay. this working for everybody? So when we're talking about retention, so we're assuming the students have already enrolled, right? Are we interested in that enrollment element as well, or just throwing that out there? Just give like one more minute.
I mean, Lily, to your point just there, a part of the reason that I'm going specifically to retention is because we're trying to keep this at the 4-year. There's students in terms of academic preparedness that are going to be landing at KCTCS systems, but I know you want to keep this kind of confined to that. So I'm circling in my head and trying to formulate a question that gets at that specific piece. The longitudinal look at the marks in math and reading among Kentucky seniors is important, but if you look at the like national, the ACT, the graduation exam, we as a state, actually more students took the exam based on the fall release, and we went up, like it might have been 0.1 in math, but we went up 0.1 and everybody else went down. And of the I think 12 or maybe 8 states that mandate and have it as a state graduation exam, we were higher in the list than most of them. So yes, but I'm trying to like think about what that piece would be, without that transition piece of those that aren't prepared, that are going to the 2 years and then coming to us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, don't worry. This is just kind of initial thoughts. If something was really resonating with you, I do want to make sure we have lots of time to continue the other ones will be much shorter, but okay. So question 2 was around dual credit. So if you want to throw out any kind of big pieces to this data request that are top of mind for you, we'll gather those for about 3 minutes of data gathering, and then we'll move on to the next one. Maybe one more minute.
Lily, I don't, for some reason, I've tried to submit 2 questions and they're not showing up.
Really?
Yeah,
If you want to put them in the chat,
okay.
I'll throw them in for you. Thank you.
Kim, are you on your phone or on your computer?
Phone.
There might be, that happened. If you go to the top, it's because you haven't switched to the next question she's asking. It caught me too.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, guys. Okay. I'm gonna get us going. This is good. So basically next steps in this data piece are, so don't start with the AI thing just yet, but like next steps in the data request, I'm gonna flesh out data request and we'll send it out to this group and welcome your insights, welcome. It'll be pretty expansive. Like we're not gonna just ask 1 or 2 questions. Like we're gonna go deep. And I think these 2 topics of college preparedness and dual credit are great topics that'll really help inform our work as we move forward. But I'll send it to you before we move into the actual submission phase for the KY stats folks. Or maybe just CPE if we have access to everything. Okay, the next discovery project is around AI. And, you know, I know that this is really Errol's area of expertise and he is going to be leading that for us, but I just wanted to take maybe 5 minutes and gather your interests in AI topics. So what is top of mind for you? What are you most interested in learning more about or exploring? Are there specific partners or vendors that you've heard of that would be interesting to hear from or to learn about? Interested in, you know, what are the big problems that you think you could really use AI to solve or, you know, improve your capacity, you know, those kind of things. So feel free to just throw some ideas in there. This will just inform. I know Errol already has some great ideas and things in the works, but just help to provide just a little bit more connection point. Anything else?
I tried to submit, but I'm having the same problem somebody else did.
You want to just put it in the chat?
Sure.
So Harmony, application assistance, is that for students
Yeah,
or
just
reading applications?
No, for students.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, this is great. We're gonna capture these. Any additional ones? Transfer of hours, transfer of learning in general, info on new AI, chatbot for general info, degree progress. Great. And application assistance. Can somebody throw application assistance in there if it's working for you? Okay. All right, well, I think that that's just, 6 or 7 responses. We're probably not gonna go into any kind of a ranking with that. Those are all good topics, and I'm pretty confident that they can be addressed over a, 4-part series in some way, shape, or fashion. So we'll skip this next little bit here. Okay, I'm gonna transition over to Errol, who's going to just share I know he kind of already introduced this aspect of the Discovery Project, but just give him a little bit more time. And if you have questions for him, now we can do that as well.
All right, thank you, Lily. So what's going to happen with this project is that we are going to be engaging members of your team in a focus group type of conversation. Now we know that everybody is busy, and so we're not looking for the totality of your team. But as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have an individual on the front stage side of your operation, an individual on the backstage side of your operation, and we'll meet with them virtually and answer questions, collect that data, and integrate it into the overall analysis of the total student journey. The idea is to build that context as well as to inform the building of that student journey. So my question for you all is, what would you like to know from your staff, in terms of elements of the student journey that you would like for them to speak on, and how can you best incentivize them to, to speak openly and transparently as well? We'll open it up from there, and then we'll go forward. All right, so I'll just talk a little bit about where we're going to go then, for the sake of time. So next week, I am going to reach out to you to identify one person on the front stage, one person on the backstage, and then we'll start scheduling time to meet with them. If there's any concerns about it, let's talk offline about what that looks like. For right now, we're only asking for 2 members of your team. We'll take a step back from this meeting and evaluate if we need to have more in order to inform this process. But every school will have a meeting with me, and I'll report back this information, and we'll integrate it into the front part of the analyze and synthesize stage, which will happen in April and May. So,
Errol,
yes, ma'am.
With this, do you want us to, I'm trying to think of who to best identify, and I don't want somebody, I'm thinking like maybe if we want to set constraints if possible, because I know there's been turnover, but like you want somebody who's been there long enough to know, but maybe not long enough where it's patterns from before, or so I don't know if you want to put like that they've been there at least, 3 to 5 years, or just something like that. I think would be helpful.
Yeah, great question. So I would ask, number one, it would be good to have one of your people leaders. So if you have a manager or someone that has been in a project lead, capacity of some sort, even if they weren't a people leader, that would be good. In terms of how much time that they've been in the role, I'm not concerned about that. It's more so your interpretation of how they brought creativity and innovative thinking to your team. And I think everybody can have a different definition of that. I'm not going to standardize that for you, but I'll give you some examples of what I mean in terms of that. You know, it's the individuals who have, you know, when you think back to either the pandemic or, you know, thereafter, as we've prepared for this period that we're in, they've really come with passion about ways to reimagine the processes that they oversee. You know, they've brought context in terms of information they've heard from their peers, or they're reading literature. They're asking really good and smart questions. And I'm happy to, if you're in a place where you're not quite sure if it's the right person, and you want to send them my way so I can just kind of have a, you know, preliminary 15-minute conversation with them to, you know, to kind of see where they are. I'm happy to do so. This is really, Christine, is really about trying to get individuals who have an intimate knowledge of your front stage and your backstage processes. So if I'm a recruiter, okay, and I'm one that says you know, I'm here to recruit. I'm not bought into the mission. I'm just collecting a paycheck. You're probably not going to be the best for this project, you know, for representing your institution. But if you've got somebody that wears that, you know, that mascot on their heart, they talk about this work like it's about the students. They take a real human-centered approach to the work that they're doing. And they are constantly trying to troubleshoot and think about how to, you know, to take the work that they do to another level, whether it is in the form of, you know, kind of processes, or if it's in the form of new resources, new vendor, you know, opportunities, or otherwise. Those are the individuals that we want for this part of the conversation. The last thing I'll say is it is important that that you all are not a part of the conversations, and I want to in establishing trust in this journey. I am not going to ask questions to, you know, to kind of pull the okie doke on anybody. It is really meant to create a safe space. I will share with them that these responses are going to be considered in the aggregate. And so they will be anonymous so that we can get the highest fidelity of responses and feedback possible. And then I'm going to touch base with Lena so we can kind of align the information that we've collected from the staff side as well as the student side as well. Christine, do you have does that answer your question?
It does. I'm just thinking like a person a year in the position wouldn't know enough about the front end stuff, like some of that. But then also I'm thinking about some of our, like I have a regional recruiter who lives in Ohio that I might recommend because she was a home-based recruiter for 8 years, then a high school counselor, and now back with us in a regional role.
Yeah.
So she has a really broad view and is very creative. And I, you know, like, and so I'm just trying to like frame as we're talking about that, what benefits the most, because I would say she's had a, you know, we're focusing on Kentucky, but she's not Kentucky, but I think she'd be a really good person for you to talk to from that perspective. So.
Yeah. And although we're looking at the admissions journey in the state of Kentucky, and yes, having someone that, you know, that has that has experienced the Kentucky admissions process, you know, at a Kentucky institution. I do think if you've got someone that has an exposure to the general admissions journey, that can bring perspective and is now interacting with your specific university process, there could be a nice synergy of macro and micro level observations that they can provide to this. So I think to take the pressure off of you all, I think it's going to be our responsibility to ask good questions. And so that's my commitment to you all is we're going to extract the right information out and feed it back by asking the right questions.
Okay, thank you, Errol. So I know that this is a pretty quick timeline, you know, and so we'll be getting that information out as soon as possible so we can get folks signed up. Okay, now I'd like to turn it over to Lena, who is going to do an overview of the student journey mapping in partnership with Gear Up. Really excited about this.
Yes, let me see if I can get the screen share to work properly. Everybody see the screen? Can I get a thumbs up from someone? You good? All right. Well, I will keep this short. I know we're almost at time and I've heard about the busy schedules, but I didn't want to take just 5 or 7 minutes to talk about one of those discovery projects to support the redesign. So I will be leading and facilitating a digital diary study with students so that we can better understand their experience. I'll spend just a couple quick minutes since I'm the new kid on the block, like I said, to give just a super brief overview to who I am, my background, and then the work that we do. And then I'll briefly share what the diary study part of the research will look like. So my name is Lena. I'm a design ethnographer by training. It's kind of a weird term, but basically it's using anthropology or anthropological methods for qualitative research. So Errol talked about big data. I focus on thick data to complement the quantitative data. It means I use observational research, contextual inquiry to better understand humans, their behaviors, mental models, experiences. I always say I don't do sticks and bones, I do people. I've spent the past 15 years or so working in different research strategies, service design, and innovation roles, both in consulting and in-house, and also across the public and private sector. And I now lead a small research and placemaking studio, like I said, based in Columbus, Indiana. And I think the most important part to take away is that in all our work, our goal is to create more resilient communities, places, services, and systems. So what does that mean? I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I will make sure that you'll have access to this deck. It's also available online if anybody's curious. But we do offer a variety of services, with the important piece being that because our work addresses wicked problems like education, our practice is rooted in wicked collaboration. So all the things that you all have been talking about, co-creation, collaboration, doing things with people, not to people, is very dear to my heart and core of our practice. The mandatory slide, we've been lucky to get to work with tons of different industries, different projects. And I really, as a researcher, I mean, you can imagine I love the chance to kind of dip into different problem spaces and different challenges. So I'm really excited to dive deeper into the world of education and the student experience specifically through this effort. All right, so enough about that. I'll briefly talk about the challenge that we heard about and then how we're going to think about it together. We heard that currently all public universities in Kentucky have their own admissions process, and that may cause confusion and frustration for incoming students specifically. We feel like we might have not a clear understanding of the lived experience of these students as they go through that journey. And we think that that understanding would support us in the mission to create a student-centric, holistic admission process across the universities. The opportunity we're pursuing with this study specifically is to build that deeper understanding of the student experience throughout that entire journey. And so partnering with Kentucky Student Success Collaborative and also partnership with Gear Up, which I'm excited about, we're launching that study to understand the experience, their needs, their pain points as they go through that journey. So we're going to facilitate a pilot discovery project with students. We're kicking off a 2-month project, which includes a 4-week digital diary study through a digital tool called Indemo. And we're piloting this experience with 4 to 5 students who have just gone through the admissions process recently. And then we will also complement that with some one-on-one interviews, virtual, and a virtual co-creation workshop with the students. Real briefly, the diary study is really there to give us a glimpse into the students' overall experience with that journey. We will be able to capture video entries from them, photo, text, as well as screen share if we want. And we bring that experience to life and also understand their emotional journey as they go through it. Just at a high level, diary studies are a great tool because they help us understand long-term behaviors like journeys, and they help us get a better understanding of things like habits. Like, what does a typical day look like for participants? Where and when in the participant's day do they interact with our services or the admissions process? What are their touch points? Their attitudes and their feelings. How do they feel as they complete a task or use your service or interact with somebody that's part of that journey? Why do they make certain decisions, right? Like, we might have a lot of access to data on the types of decisions they make, but do we always understand why they're making these decisions? So that's where this data can be useful. We can understand how their feeling and perception about the experience or the journey changes over time, so that longitudinal view. and also seeing some unexpected points of friction or delight that they might be experiencing throughout. And then, of course, the context of use. So how does that journey exist in the broader context of a student's life? What do they think about? What are their emotions? What are their mental models around the admissions journey? I will also facilitate, like I said, virtual interviews with each student to dive a little bit deeper into their experience and just to get their reflection on what went well and what didn't and understand that better. And then we will also host a virtual co-creation lab or a workshop basically with them to reflect on that experience together. And one thing I really love about them is that often what we find is that those sessions really help all the participants learn from each other and with each other through their different experiences. But it also helps shift into an opportunity space where we can use design stimuli and we engage with them to start thinking about what are opportunity spaces we could explore from the student's perspective so that we're leveraging them throughout the process. I always call this research through design, not research for design. And then lastly, the outcomes, we are hoping will include learnings about the experience with the process. And then, like I said, a starting understanding of what are their goals, their needs, and their pain points throughout. And then based on the success of this 2-month pilot, we will facilitate a year-long diary study. So that truly longitudinal view between September 2024 and August 25, where we would facilitate a year-long study with a larger group of participants to follow them in the moment as they're going through that experience and as they go through the 8 unique admissions journeys all the way through matriculation. And that's all I have. Wanted to give a quick high-level overview. If there's any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. I'm also available after the session. I'll share the deck with you all and through Lily, and happy to answer questions as they come.
Is it, one quick question, is it possible
Yep.
to identify some of the students that will be in the September launch and actually start them in their junior year? Because visits and events and summer, I mean, I think there's a lot of pipeline development in sophomore and junior year. And I think that's a big part, with whether students take advantage of that or not. So just a thought.
No, it's a great comment and a great question, and I'll let Lily answer it. I'll just say that we will be very considerate about who we will include in that larger study, because I think that's a really valid point. And I think for this pilot, we're working with folks who have just gone through this process. And part of that decision point was actually the changes in financial aid. So the students that are going through it right now, they're dealing with such a unique situation that we didn't want to skew the data. And so, yes, lots of opportunity to discuss that. But Lily, I'll let you answer from your perspective.
Yeah, and just, it's interesting because the grant is giving us some great resources to work with, but we do not want the grant to dictate how we work. And so while we do have, pieces that we will provide back to our funder at, in January or February of 2025, this is about Kentucky. And so, what we talked with Lena about, with Kim Welch and I talked with Lena about, was we want to kind of get a taste of what is a diary study, what can we learn from it, what are some of those initial thoughts and pieces of this puzzle that we can then get really excited about and build out the full year. And even if, Christine, it's like, well, we want 1/3 of our students to be sophomores, 1/3 to be juniors, and 1/3 to be seniors. Like, we can do a lot of different things in how we choose to design the diary study. So absolutely, the sky is the limit there with that potential project, but we still want to make sure that through this pilot and this little snapshot of this 2-month window, that we as a state and as a guiding team, want to invest in the year-long project. So.
And
Okay.
just a quick
Yeah.
add, 30 seconds. One of the conversations we've been having offline is the value proposition in that year-long study of not only including students, but also your staff perspectives and also some of your faculty perspectives as well. During the year-long project with Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, taking the perspective from those vantage points of engagement in the admissions journey provided a really dynamic and added another level of depth towards the understanding of in that project. It was specifically for the spring yield portion of the experience, and so we'll continue to have conversations to see if it makes sense as we look in terms of the long-term partnership with Lena and her firm.
Well, it's 12:57 and now it's time for our quick wrap up. And so Errol, I was going to turn it back to you and let me know if you need me to chime in.
Yeah, I just want to again thank you all. A lot of information, today, but it was meant to be introductory in nature. We're not giving you anything right now, but we will begin engaging you over the next couple of weeks. As Lily had mentioned, we're very vigilant and intentional about the time cap, and in terms of what your all's contributions are. So we want to be thoughtful in how we are collaborating with you. And I just want to stress again, our role is to facilitate spaces for a very high in demand talent pool in you all that have to imagine what it means to ensure that the enrollment pipeline remains solvent. And so us doing that together, we hope you see this as a service. We hope this informs your planning processes when you go back to your teams and start looking at, the next fiscal year and beyond. And we hope that you feel a sense of vitality that comes with engaging in this creativity journey that we're going on as design planners and design thinkers. Thank you all.
Errol. So I put some things in the chat here. The first admissions redesign network meeting, which is our large group meeting, will be Tuesday, April 16th from 1 to 4 p.m. You will see the results of our discovery projects, or at least where we are with and what has emerged. So the last piece of that is we're putting, meeting invites on calendars right now. And so anybody that you've sent us their names, they've gotten the invite. But if for some reason we haven't received your full team or you want to add somebody, and this goes for KDE, for Kia, for Harmony and your team, please let me know who those folks are. And we will get them invited. Okay. Well, y'all have been wonderful. We'll send a follow-up email and look forward to seeing you again in a few months. Bye, everyone.